Hello friends, it's nice to see you. We're going to be talking about biographies this week and next week. And I thought I'd start by reading about Jacques Cousteau. Now Jacques Cousteau was a Frenchman and he loved exploring underwater. Now before we get into Jacques, I am going to point out one thing just in case you didn't know what a biography is. So a biography is a story about a person's life. That's where they tell all the important things that happened in a person's life. Should we jump in? The fantastic Undersea Life of Jacques Cousteau. This one is written and illustrated by Yaccarino. Ooh, look at all these underwater creatures. There he is. Jacques Cousteau loved the sea. He spent his whole life exploring it. The ocean was the most incredible place he had ever seen, and he wanted to share its beauty with the world. Growing up in France, little Jacques was a weak and sickly boy. Doctors encouraged him to swim to build up his strength. He discovered that he loved the water. Jacques also loved to tinker and build all sorts of gadgets. He saved his money and bought a camera to make his own movies, and then he took it apart to see how it worked. Now, on a lot of these pages, they have something that Jacques Cousteau actually said. Here's something that he really said. Man has only to sink beneath the surface, and he is free. Buoyed by water, he can fly. Ooh, this page is a little bit stuck together. There we go. When he was a young man, Jacques was badly hurt in a car accident. Doctors told him he would have to wear arm braces for the rest of his life. But he refused to accept this. Just as he had done before, he turned to the sea for strength, and then he swam every day in the Mediterranean. A friend gave him a pair of goggles so he could see underwater. Those goggles changed his life forever. Sometimes we are lucky enough to know that our lives have been changed. It happened to me that summer's day when my eyes opened to the world beneath the surface of the sea. Cousteau wanted to stay underwater longer, to see even more. The diving suits of his day were heavy and bulky. They didn't allow much freedom of movement, and an air hose tethered the diver to a boat. So Jacques set about tinkering, fashioning snorkels from things like inner tubes and garden hoses, but they weren't good enough. Cousteau and his engineer friend, Émile Gagnon, created a breathing apparatus they called the aqualung. It was the first machine that would let a diver breathe underwater for long periods of time. Always I rebelled against the limitations imposed by single breaths of air. Now Cousteau was free to truly explore. A silent world opened up to him. He said, "I flew without wings," because when he was underwater, he felt like he was flying. Cousteau wanted to share the amazing beauty of the sea with the world, so he created an airtight cover for his camera. He made lights to illuminate the sea's mysteries and found ways to film underwater. It fascinated me to do something that seemed impossible. Cousteau bought a boat and turned it into his very own floating research lab and film studio. he sailed his beloved Calypso, that was the name of the boat, all over the world. What is a scientist after all? It is a curious person looking through a keyhole, the keyhole of nature, trying to know what's going on. Cousteau discovered many treasures in the Mediterranean Sea, and it was there that he shot The Silent World, the first full-length, full-color underwater film ever made. It took the world by storm. That means lots of people liked it. The best way to observe a fish is to become a fish. Cousteau's film gave people their first glimpse of the amazing universe under the waves. Everyone loved what they saw as much as Jacques did, and they wanted to see more. So Cousteau set about showing them. He and his team created even better diving equipment and cameras. There's much to see and be seen by. Cousteau's team invented the diving saucer, which could hold 2 people and descend 350 meters into the ocean. Next came the sea flea, which held only 1 person but could go down 500 meters. Cousteau was on a never-ending quest to go deeper and learn more. We must move on deeper, he said. Cousteau explored the frigid waters of Antarctica and found them teeming with penguins, humpback whales, and squid. May this continent, the last explored by humankind, be the first one to be spared by humankind. Cousteau wanted to see if people could actually live underwater. He and his team built a series of underwater labs where people lived and worked for days and weeks at a time. But they found that people needed sunlight to live, and so Cousteau's dream of colonizing the ocean was not to be. I am a believer in today and tomorrow. Jacques Cousteau was the world's ambassador of the ocean. He produced 50 books, 2 encyclopedias, and dozens of documentary films. Documentary films are films that are about real things, where you just shoot about real things. So they're like non-fiction videos. His popular TV series, The Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau, brought whales, octopuses, otters, and dolphins right into people's living rooms. When one man, for whatever reason, has the opportunity to lead an extraordinary life, he has no right to keep it to himself. While exploring off the coast of Australia, Cousteau and his crew saw coral reefs, kelp forests, and sponge gardens. They came face to face with the leafy sea dragon. There was wildlife untouched, a jungle at the border of the sea. When diving in the water near France, Cousteau and his crew found a sunken ship full of wine jars, over 2,200 years old. They tasted the wine, and it was bitter. The fish off the coast of Africa were friendly and curious and did not swim away. Cousteau was the first human being they had ever seen. A big grouper adopted the crew while they were filming and mischievously knocked over lights and cameras. Cousteau and his team explored the world, but when they went back to the Mediterranean, Cousteau found it had changed. The seas were polluted, plants and animals were dying, and so the ocean's ambassador became their most important defender. He started the Cousteau Society, which is committed to educating people about ocean life and protecting the seas from pollution. He said, "We protect what we love." When you think about what Cousteau loved most, it was the oceans and seas. Jacques Cousteau loved the sea. He shared its beauty with the world so that everyone could love and cherish it too. If we were logical, the future would be bleak indeed. But we are more than logical. We are human beings, and we have faith, and we have hope, and we can work. Now over here, there's a timeline of important events in his life. I'm not going to read them all, but it says he was born in 1910 in France. In 1930, he went to the Naval Academy and he joined the French Navy. He got married in 1937. In 1943 is when he created the aqualung. In 1950 is when he got the Calypso, his big boat. His film won the top prize in 1956 at Cannes Film Festival, and it won an Academy Award for Best Documentary. Remember, that means nonfiction video, in 1957. In 1963, 5 divers lived in an undersea colony for a month to prove that people could do it. During 1966 to 1976, that's 10 years, he created the undersea world of Jacques Cousteau. In 1974, he started the Cousteau Society. Remember, that was to protect the oceans from pollution. And he died in 1997 at the age of 87. So those are some of the important things. There are more, and you can sure look up Jacques Cousteau on Pebble Go and learn even more about him and see another timeline of his life. Biographies are such a fun way to explore interesting people. Why don't you check out Pebble Go and see if there's anyone else you can learn more about? Have fun, and I'll see you soon.